Hello, Julia. How are you?
Good. So glad to be here.
I cannot even tell you how excited I am to have this conversation today on the show. Um, First of all, I'll introduce you as I'll call you like my therapist here, but I am just so excited that I stumbled across, which we've talked about this. Like I don't believe things happen by accident, but I was looking for some support, and obviously everything's virtual right now, so I kind of expanded my search region to being across Canada, and you popped up on Google, and I just was instantly resonating with the things I saw on your YouTube
Mm.
channel and on your Instagram and on your website. And you just have such a amazing way of saying all of the things that are going on inside my head, but putting it eloquently out there that makes it understandable to process.
That means a lot to me because that is my goal, is to help people understand themselves better, because our brains and our lives, and like us as humans, we don't come with a manual, and we are these like very complex beings that we're just like, it's like, here you are, here's your human, now
Mm-hmm.
figure out what to do. And it's one of the most
Totally.
complex like machines ever, and we don't know what to do with it. And so then we blame ourselves because we're like, well, I don't know how to work this. I don't know how to make it work. I don't know how to, like, I don't know what to do with it. And then we get mad at ourselves because we don't know, and we blame ourselves like, oh, well, I guess there's something wrong with me because I can't figure out how to make this work properly.
Totally. So yeah, I was instantly hooked, and I just know that this episode is going to be such a gift for my listeners today. So I would love to just dive right in and just hear a little bit of your background, I guess, in how you decided that being in an industry of being a therapist and helping humans, as you call it, is your calling, and how you kind of decided to get into that, and how things have shaped in the business and the community that you have grown today.
Well, it's a bit of a funny story because I always say that I have this propensity to make things harder than they need to be. That's kind of been the story of my life. But I mean, if I can look back and rewind to when I was, I think, about 14 years old, and in the back seat of my good friend's parents' car, sitting in the parking lot while her mom ran in to get some groceries, and we were sitting in the car listening to the radio. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and there was this radio show on the local radio at the time called Sex, Lies, and Audio Tape. And what it was a relationship counselor. It was a call-in show. So people would call in to this relationship counselor and talk about the things they were struggling with, and she would help them through it. And I was like immediately hooked. I'm like, what is this? And what is this job where this person gets to listen to what people are dealing with and struggling with, and she gets to help them sort it out and make sense of it? This is incredible. And I kind of just didn't think too much of it after that. I kind of tabled it in the back of my brain. And then fast forward to 10 years later, after I'd done my undergrad degree, I was working for a nonprofit, for a community living organization. I had put aside the idea of becoming a therapist. I put it to the back because I was not a school person. I mean, I can do school, but I didn't love school.
Mm.
And I kind of just scraped through university because I would rather have played cards in the cafeteria with my friends than go to class.
I hear you loud and clear.
Right. And so I did. I just barely basically one semester, I almost went on academic probation, no lie. Like, well, Julia, it's time to get back to class. But anyway, so I was about 24 years old and not really sure what I wanted to do. Just, that feeling where you're like, I know I was meant for more,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't know how to do it, or where to turn to, or where to look, or what step to take, or who to talk to. I just don't know. And so I was in this very sort of frustrated state for several years of being like, I know that I've got more to offer, but I don't know how to do it or where to do it. So anyways, it kind of all came about 10 years later when I was 24 years old, and I was sitting at a table at my cousin's wedding in Saskatoon, by the way. Yeah,
Hey.
with my cousin's aunt and uncle on the other side. And I was chatting with them, and I had known their kids because I had grown up seeing their kids a few times, right? When families kind of,
Mm-hmm.
different sides of families come together. And I remember, I remember their kids, and I was asking about their kids, and one of their children in particular, we'll call her Sarah. And I said, how is Sarah doing? What's Sarah up to these days? And they said, oh, Sarah's in school to become a chiropractor. And I was like, if she was younger than me at that time, and well, I guess she still is younger than me. And I'm like, if little brown, curly haired, freckled faced, whiny, chasing me and my cousin Dagan around, if she can, this little whiny girl who is kind of annoying, if she can become a chiropractor, what the heck am I doing? Right. And so it was that moment where it was almost like my ego got in the way, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this little girl show me up. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to become a therapist. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. I thought, it's a 2-year master's program. I can do that. I can do 2 years. I can tough it out. I can suck it up. I can make it happen. And then bam, 6 years later, I became a therapist. Right? Because you go through all the prerequisite courses, and I applied several times. I didn't get accepted for the first 3 times that I applied. And then finally I got in. And then actually from there, it was crazy, and just sort of a testament to when you are doing the thing that is right for you, it doesn't have to be hard. Like I remember as soon as I got into grad school, I'm like, I'm not a school person. But then I ended up graduating with like a 4.2 GPA, valedictorian, like all of this stuff. And it wasn't because I was like some, intelligent, like super intelligent, super talented person. It was because I loved it. And I was like, I knew it. This was the extension of me, right? This was my like 5th appendage that had been missing this whole time. And now I've got it. And I feel like I can finally function the way that I was supposed to.
Well, and that is so evident in the work that you put out today. It's one of those things where I have seen some different therapists throughout my adult life and have had different connections with each one. Some have felt like they've just clicked right away, and other ones you kind of go a few times and you're just not, for whatever reason, nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just is what it is. And there was just something from the moment I heard your messaging that you were putting out into the world on your social channels, that I was like, I feel like it was almost this feeling like I feel like I had known you for a long time. There was just this way that was being spoken to that, I mean, I knew you weren't speaking to me, but it felt like you were. And it just was one of those things where it was like this settling in my own being that felt like, here is somebody who actually not only cares, obviously, but who has the ability and the expertise to be able to, like I said before, say the things out loud in order to help the chaos that's sometimes going on in my brain and all of our brains, to just be able to process that and to be able to get onto the other side of it, rather than feeling you have to stay stuck in the place of figuring things out.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and that the thing is, Kimberly, is that like I think the thing that people connect with what I talk about is I'm not afraid of talking about shame, right? Like we all have it. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to admit it. But as soon as it's spoken, it's like you can exhale, because you're like, oh, I've been holding this in for so long. And now someone's talking openly about it and making me realize that my shame doesn't make me broken or flawed or weird. It's just part of being human. And it's like just talking about this stuff openly that I think in a bit of a sugarcoat society, we're afraid, right? Like we're afraid to just be honest. We're afraid that we're going to go down these deep, dark holes if we're actually just honest with ourselves about what's going on. But the opposite is true. As soon as we bring that stuff into the light, it's like, I love the analogy that researcher, sociologist Brene Brown, who you haven't heard of her, right? I know.
Of course. I was just about to say, we're all channeling our inner Brene Brown, except none of us have actually met her in person. So we'll have the conversation here.
Right? Yeah. And she talks about the shame gremlin, right? And gremlins, like in the movie, when you bring them, they cower when they're brought into the light. They shrink, they lose their power when you bring them into the light. And so when we're able to just talk about these things, like obviously in safe environments, it's not about just like splashing all of your deepest,
Yes.
darkest secrets over social media. But, you know, speaking about these things with people who have earned the right to hear it, with those safe relationships, but letting ourselves be authentic and vulnerable, you know, giving other people the opportunity to say, oh my gosh, me too. And I think that that's part of what my videos do is people are like, oh my gosh, yes, me too. That's it. How come you know, no one ever talked about this being normal before. And I think for me, for my own journey, right? Like I'm a human being, got my shame, got my stuff, got my things that I've been working out. I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? Why is everyone just telling you that you either, you know, have like a mental illness that makes you, you know, incapacitated, or you just have to think positive, right?
Mhm.
Like you just have to like, you know, suck it up and it's all good. And
Yeah. Where's the in
right.
between?
Where's
Where
the
is
in
the
between?
conversation?
Yeah,
Totally.
where's the in between space to just be like a human being with human feelings and human experiences and human pain and human struggling? And why are we not just like talking about that? Not in this like, oh, this is so awful, horrible thing, but just like this is part of being human.
Hmm. Oh, I totally agree. And I get asked that question a lot on my social platforms, just with even with just posting out about the podcast and about different things that are coming up on my own kind of business platform.
Yeah.
Just even just like messages that come in that are like, how are you just feeling like you can share these things out loud? And I'm not sharing anything that by any means that is like really overly uncomfortable, but just sharing and just
Yeah.
saying what's going on. Like, I'm
Yeah.
having a bad day. This is really crap right now. This is what's going
Yeah.
on. And mixing that in with today's really good. Today feels
Yeah.
really good. Like, and it
Totally.
doesn't have to be all sunshine and rainbows all of the time. And I think I've actually found myself over the years almost unfollowing more
Mm.
things on social that exude this extensive positivity on things. I would call myself an optimist. I'm a very positive person,
Yeah.
but in the same respect, have equally as many bad days as anybody else and
Totally.
snippets of moments throughout any day that just comes up of things that are frustrating or hard to process and deal with. And it's a constant work in progress. But I almost feel like it's easier to just not see those blasts of positivity all the time, because when you're having a day, that doesn't feel good to like
No.
see those things. And you kind of have to know and be able to analyze what headspace you're in to know, like, should this be bothering me right now? Or can I just like let
Yeah.
this go and realize that this isn't someone trying to get me?
Well, and the danger with this toxic positivity, and I call it, and I don't like the word toxic because it's, you know, a little bit of a cliche term, but it can be dangerous positivity, is that when people are pretending like
Mhm.
everything is all good all the time,
Yes.
that's shame-based, right?
Yes.
I have to perfect and perform and please in order to make you think that I am good enough, because I don't really think that I am, and I'm struggling with that. So I need to put on this mask, I need to put on this front to get that validation and approval, because I don't believe it myself, right? And so when we have this society and this culture of perfect and everyone's great and everyone's happy and everyone's children pose beautifully for photos and matching outfits, like, do you know what it takes for me to get my kids, all three of my kids, just to look at the camera, let alone like not have someone with a finger up their nose, or like
It
putting
does
like
get
whatever the
easier. I'll tell you that it does get easier, but then it just turns into teen and preteen problems, which are a whole nother bag of tricks.
right. I have to
I'm
bribe my
realizing.
children so hard. I am. And then I just sit there. Okay. You want a lollipop? You want some chocolate? You want to have all the TV that you want, but just look at the camera.
You name it. Mommy's got her checkbook out. What do you need?
Right. I'm like, and they're just sitting there waiting. What else you got, sis? What else you got? Keep going. Keep going. You want this smile and these eyes on that camera? You keep going. And so, I mean,
Totally.
you know, you see these really perfect pictures. And then the rest of us, right? Shame begets shame. So then if someone is just only posting this perfect stuff, and I know part of it's for business, and I know part of it, people are building, you know, building their empires on portraying this idea or ideal of perfection. But, you know, when there's no honesty in there, it's covering something up, right? It's a cover up. And so then the
Mhm.
rest of us see it and we're like, oh, look at how perfect their life is. Look at how great they are. Look at how together they always have it. Look at how amazing
Mhm.
their marriage is, and how wonderful their children are, how beautiful their home is, how glorious their vacations are. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me?
Mhm.
Why is that not my life? And why can't I have that? And, why am I so like such a mess? Why do I sometimes find myself, locked in the bathroom, crying on the edge of the bathtub because I'm so overwhelmed with life right now? Right? Like, man, what's wrong with me? So then it regenerates my own shame. And so then I have to show up like pretending and putting on the strength. It's like, well, this is what, like, I mean, I don't want anyone to know that there's something wrong with me. So now I have to go and portray this image of perfection. And then we
Mhm.
just create this almost like this shame cover up culture.
Well, and the irony that I just can't help but notice constantly is that the irony is that if I'm actually looking into myself, I feel so much better when the people around me have just unveiled the mask
Totally.
and I can see their messy house and I can see that they are still upset from a fight they had with their husband or wife or partner the night before,
Yeah.
that their kids put crap all over the walls, that their like
Yeah.
work sucks, their contracts all just got canceled. Like I don't I don't say this in a sense that makes me feel happy. That's not what I'm saying. But it
Makes
just
you
makes me
feel
feel
human.
human and
Yes.
real. And it
Yes.
immediately almost feels like a gift and an invitation for, if it's somebody that I'm close with or somebody that I know, to be able to either message or send something relatable to be like, thank you,
Yeah.
or feeling this too, you're not alone. Like, thank you for just being so honest. You have honestly made my day, not because your day is really crap right now, but
Right.
because
Well,
it's just real.
it's just real. And we admire perfect, right? We admire the illusion of perfect, but we don't connect with perfect,
Mhm.
right? Like, and I think that's so interesting because so many of us, right? We think that we need to be perfect in order to be good enough, in order to be lovable, in order to be worthy. And so we kind of also put on, for many of us, I know I did for a long time, putting on this sort of illusion of perfection because I thought that's what I needed to do to be good enough. But then I realized it's really lonely, right? It's
Mhm.
perfection. Trying to be perfect is really lonely because you keep yourself, when you try to be perfect, you keep yourself protected, which prevents genuine connection. Because people don't connect to perfect. They admire it, but they
Totally.
connect to real.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because this has been an ongoing struggle for me personally because my career in event planning, the entire purpose of planning an event, there's a purpose usually of the event to have happened. The entire purpose is to make something out of this world perfect, to give people
Yeah.
the experience that they are having, an experience like they've never had before, and mistakes are not welcome here, and you must fit this part to be able to join in, and you must have this much money to join in, and you must do this and this and this. And for almost 20 years that has been the career that I've been in, and it's been this constant sort of, and I love pretty things and I love going to parties and I love making things
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And it's that line between that being natural gifting and where my heart is so passionate about doing this, and
Yeah.
also finding the line of making sure that the realness of me wearing my yoga pants and sweating for 10 hours of setup prior to putting on the little black dress and looking like I snapped my fingers and my little magical fairies made these events happen, like
Yeah.
it's just sort of, and I think a lot of women specifically, I'm sure men feel this way too, but I would say when you're thinking from even a social presentation, just of what's putting out there, I think a lot of women, me included, are in this sort of like, you want to show up authentically, but there's just so many things about either the career you're in or the things that you do that kind of are fighting that a little bit, and it's hard to know what is right, you know?
Well, and I mean, I think you can have an experience. You can have a heightened experience. That's not the word I'm looking for, but an elevated. You can have an
Yes.
elevated experience. Like that's beautiful, right? To have
Mhm.
beautiful experiences in life, absolutely, right? And be curating and creating
Mhm.
beautiful experiences for people, to have that set to connect, right? To communicate, to be with each other, right? Because that's what an event is. It's an opportunity for
Mhm.
for relationships to be built.
Totally.
right? And you're just providing a really lovely setting for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't, right? Like, but that's separate from just the authenticity of life.
Right. Mm-hmm. That isn't everyday life for everybody.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like, and your role is just creating an experience for people. It's not putting them into, a constant alternate reality and in a place of like denial. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Well, and I think that brings me to, so I want to talk a little bit about, the Shift Society and the group
Yes.
that you have created within your therapy practice. And anyone who wants to sign up for this program and become a member is able to choose that option if they want to. And it is a program that I am a part of. And I want to just talk about, the actual practical strategies that you have implemented in this program, because there are things about, and what we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation, in just learning how to process your emotions and not being hard on yourself for feeling a certain way or not feeling a certain way, and always telling ourselves that we should be doing something a certain way, and then not giving ourselves grace when we have a panic attack about something or yell at our kid for something or whatever, and like haven't maybe chosen the right emotions to bring out in a moment. But I am just blown away as I use this Shift Society as daily therapy, kind of, for myself to just be better and to actually have tangible strategies that you are providing that I can implement into my own life and start navigating further why certain things regularly make me feel a certain way, and how can I change my response to feel healthier about it rather than these things evoking stressful emotions out of me. So tell me how you decided, I guess, to create this Shift Society. I know helping people is your passion, and you get to help lots of people throughout this group, which is just amazing.
Well, okay, there's a few reasons for that. I've always loved doing things in groups. I remember even when I was in grad school taking my group therapy course, I'm like, there's something really beautiful about the healing and growing that happens in a community context with people who are doing similar things. The thing is, though, is that in our society, we generally have a bit of an aversion to group therapy, right? People feel, again, that shame. I don't want to feel exposed. I don't want to, put myself out there. I don't want to have to like speak in front of other people, right? And so there is, and interestingly enough, just as an aside, research shows that group therapy is as effective, if not sometimes more effective, for helping people work through whatever they're struggling with than individual therapy. Because there is that added element of, like, they call it like the third person, which is the group, right? So there's client, there's therapist, and there's group. And all three of those have this really healing component to them. And so usually, people are more reluctant to do like group therapy. And so, but I've always had this in the back of my mind where I'm like, how do we create this group experience and the power of connection and community? I think especially at this time and place in history, which is why I think maybe the group has exploded this year. The year I started, right? The year I start the group is the year we go into shutdown and start having less, connection with our loved ones. So we're all kind of looking for this place to belong on a regular basis, to connect, to be plugged into something, right? And so having this group experience, but then also having a step-by-step process for people to really truly understand what's going on in their brain. And so they can learn how to manage their minds, right? How to go inside, instead of what so many of us do is we try to control our environment in order to manage our emotions, right? We're trying to make things
Guilty.
well, all of us, right? Right. And we don't know, again, this like very complex system that we're all just sort of given at birth without a manual.
Just go raise yourself and be a productive human being.
Right? Just
Go
figure
for it.
out the way it all works. And then if you can't figure out how to work it, blame yourself,
Yeah,
right? And then that,
totally.
right? And the whole shame thing comes in again. But yeah, being able to teach a cognitive scientifically backed, step-by-step process to help people understand what's going on in their brain, not only understand, because that's often, where I think therapy falls short, is it gives people insight and understanding, which can be cathartic, right? It can feel good to be like, oh, this is why this is happening. This is why my brain is doing this. This is why I'm struggling with this, right? Because of that thing that kid said to me in like
Mm-hmm.
grade 5 while I was like walking, across the classroom, and they started, whispering elephant stumps under their breath.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Not that I'm speaking from experience at all.
Yes, but something like this.
Yeah,
Yes.
my body image issues. Oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, so right, therapy just helps you gather that insight. But then what, right? And research even shows that insight is not sufficient enough to produce positive change. It's interesting, and there's a certain healing element to understanding, but it doesn't actually catapult into and automatically result in healthy, productive, positive change and growth and moving forward. And so, what we've done in the Shift Society is I've given people the tools to understand what's going on, but then the next step, okay, what do I do now? How do I undo it? And how do I use, right? How do I use that undoing, and how do I use this information to take the next step forward?
And this honestly is where I feel like the group component is just so powerful, because
Yeah.
seeing people who mostly are like, they're strangers to each other. I mean, connecting within the group and maybe getting to know each other a little bit, but these are not a group of best friends all hanging out and deciding to do therapy together. They're just from anywhere around the world.
Yeah,
And
around the world.
in this group, and people just being so open and honest. And I think what feels so therapeutic about it is that every person is there with the intention to grow and to heal.
Yeah.
So they're not in there to judge somebody else for their growing and healing, because the whole purpose is for everyone to get that. And so to see the comments and the revelations and the hard
Yeah.
things and the good things that come up almost feels, you're totally right, like when you're writing something or talking about something, and when others in the group are writing something and you're reading what they're working through or what's been really hard in their week, it's so therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's just something that happens in my brain, at least while I'm seeing these things, where
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. This is
Yes.
like, I don't know. It's so powerful.
It really is. Yeah. And it is like, the group component, it's every kind of group leader's dream to have like a very cohesive, very supportive, really like safe place for their people. And, so when we first created the Facebook group, I'm like, okay, how do we kind of cultivate and create? And we were right in there, like from the beginning, like we want to make sure that this group stays this, just this really encouraging, supportive, but like honest and authentic,
Mm-hmm.
safe place for everyone. And it's blown me away because it's bigger than me. Like this group as part of the Shift Society is way bigger than me. And it's kind of just become this like this ecosystem that is running itself. And of course I'm in there and I'm supporting and I'm coaching and I'm helping and I'm interacting, but so much of it doesn't even require me, because the group itself has come in to support each other and just to hold each other up. And there's people that have been in the Shift Society for 8 months who are just like there to embrace the new members who are coming in, and they're like, like I'm excited, but I'm scared, and I'm happy, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm relieved, and I'm stressed, like all at the same time. And these other group members are just like, hey, like we're here for you. We're here for you. We're going to help you, create that soft landing for yourself. In the meantime, we'll be there to catch you. Right. And so
Oh,
it's so
totally.
beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It is. And I think too, in seeing how people interact with each other there, as well as um, posting and writing about things that sort of go from fairly major, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
judgment in what somebody feels
Yeah.
feelings on, but fairly major topics to kind of just day-to-day
Yeah.
things that could be irritating or something that's just not feeling right in your life. And it just reminds me that there's nothing too small
Yeah.
to recognize your feelings on, because all of those little tiny things can add up to really making life feel harder than it needs to be if they're
Totally.
not being processed properly.
Well, and that's the thing too, is it so rarely is it like these big things that are getting in our way, that are
Like
holding us
death
back.
by
It's
1,000 paper cuts.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
right? Like it's these little triggers, it's these little interactions, it's these moments of, someone not texting you back and like wondering, did I say something? Like, why aren't they texting me back? Or getting an email from your boss and being like, I'm automatically just seeing, a message from your boss in your inbox and being like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And like
Right.
the anxiety, like they want to meet with me. Or even, your mom making a little kind of underhanded remark about your parenting or your haircut or the new couch you bought, right? And it's just that little bit of that little trigger where it's like, what did she mean by that? Or why does she always say stuff like that, right? Or your partner not feeling really connected to your partner, and your partner kind of being a little bit absent or checked out and being like, what's going on there? All the way to having, being in really unstable relationships, or really struggling with loneliness and disconnection and anxiety in the midst of a global pandemic, right? Like, so it's these bigger things, and it's the smaller things, and it's all of it in between, and just acknowledging that that's so much of our human experience. And it is often, right, like it's often these little things that get to us, that throw us off, that bring up these emotions that make life harder than it needs to be. So learning how to manage our minds around that without just, having to be grateful and think positive and pretend that it's not happening. Right.
Totally. Well,
Yeah.
and I think too, I think it's so easy for us to think that when we're having a problem or when something doesn't feel right or whatever the case may be, that it's either just going to naturally resolve itself,
Yeah.
or, and sometimes it does, absolutely, or there has to be some massive big thing that has to happen in order to
Yeah.
fix it. And I think that it's just, I don't know, it just feels, it feels nice to know that you can actually put the work in to
Yes.
being better, and that when that these things, like anybody gets better by working on something harder. That's just like
Right.
humaning 101, right? Like you
Yes.
want to play an instrument, you're not going to be the next Kenny G on the saxophone just by picking it up, right? Like that was a bad example, but like
I
you're
love it.
not, it doesn't work that way. And I am definitely guilty of being the type of person who just wants to like try something once and be an expert. And I see that
Yeah.
in my children now too. And it's like glaring me in the face of, oh, right, I remember and continue to remember feeling that way too. How do I support them in recognizing that that's not the way it works? You
That's not
have
the
to
way
put
that it
in the
works.
time.
Well, it's so interesting how we have this expectation for our personal development, for our emotional and psychological development, that we don't, I mean, maybe we do, which is why most people give up on working out, but we don't have that same expectation for our physical health, right? We're not like, I want to go to the gym for like every day for a week and then have like rock hard abs and a butt
Mhm.
that doesn't quit, right? Like
Yeah,
we don't do that. We're
totally.
like, you know what, I need, and I almost think of this shift society as like a brain gym, where it's like,
Mhm.
here's the foundational lessons, right? Like, here's the core of what you need to do. And then here are these other things that are going to work out different parts of you, right? So we have the core lessons in there. There's 8 core lessons that I told you or that we talked about, is like the step by step on how to like understand what's going on in your brain and how to manage that and how to deal with basically anything that comes up in life. And then we go into these more kind of focused master classes once a month, where we look more specifically at a certain area and then apply those tools to that and kind of dive deeper around that issue, like boundaries, like self-love, like motivation, like oh my gosh, trying to think of some of the other, people pleasing, like a deep sense of confidence, Like we have master classes around in that. And so, you know, we don't do that with our physical health. We're like, yeah, I've got to show up, right? I don't have to go and do a 2-hour workout, like hardcore workout every single day, but I do need to show up consistently if I want to see results. And that's just, it's exactly the way the brain works. It's called neuroplasticity, where it's like going to get a little bit brain sciencey on you, but right, like our brain is made up of neurons that have, there's a funny little saying in the neurobiology community. It says that neurons that fire together wire together. And every time we're having,
that could be on a t-shirt,
right? Sure, it probably is in somewhere.
Yeah,
Right? But it's like we have these experiences, or we have these thoughts, we have these reactions, and then that becomes the firing in our brain, and that becomes the wiring, which is why we have these default patterns and these default reactions, almost even unconsciously, without even thinking about it. Right? That's why we take something personally, or we get offended by this, or we get angry about this thing, right? Like we have these automatic reactions, even if we don't want to. And in hindsight, we're like, oh, why did I do that? That was so silly. Or like, why did I make it mean that? Or why did I get so worked up about it? But it's because we have this wiring in there. And so if we want to have a different response, we have to exercise different muscles, right? We have to actually allow different neurons to fire so that they can wire. And you can change your default way of being. But you have to understand that there is a process, and your brain has to change, and that change takes work. It doesn't take a ton of work, but it takes consistent work over time, a little bit of consistent work over time to allow different neurons to fire, and then they wire, and then you can change, right? An anxious, stressed, feeling down all the time, or just like feeling, bad about yourself or something. You can change like a default brain into a brain that is more calm and clear and grounded. Not to say that you're never going to have a difficult human emotion again, because again, that's part of being human, but it won't be the default, and it won't be where you get stuck for prolonged periods of time, because you now, right, like both two things happen when you change your brain, is you experience the anxiety, the sadness, the self-doubt, the self-hatred, like you experience that less often, because it's not, your brain just like has changed its wiring. So both it happens less often. And then when it does happen, you're able to move yourself through it more easily and not get stuck in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, this is something that I have really come to realize in the last few years, is that I think there's times where, especially in, like I said, the career that I'm in, and I think all of us, like we're busy, we've got lots on the go, we're raising families, we're having relationships, we're just trying to have it all be running smoothly and running well and having life feel good. And we want those feelings, but recognizing that it's not sort of, I hope that nothing catastrophic or aggravating happens, but I know that these things are going to happen in a day. How am I going to process them? Not, ooh, I hope nothing happens, because that's just, I used to do that to myself all the time. And then I would be so frustrated. And it was almost like the more you think that, the more negative things happen, because you're like anticipating them not happening.
Right. Because we're so scared of like what we're going to make it mean, how we're going to feel, how we're going to treat ourselves, right? It's the reason why people don't try things and make themselves vulnerable and open to failure. It's not even, so here's like the thing about failure is we think that we're scared of failing because we're scared of what other people are going to think, right? But it's not true. We're not actually scared of what other people are going to think. We're scared of what we are going to make their judgments or opinions mean about us, right? Like if I put myself out there and that person and someone was like, oh, like she has weird hair, it wouldn't bother me, right? Like if I was just like, and I've had people do that on my videos. People are like, oh, like you blink too much and you breathe too loud and your hair bothers me and your voice is annoying. I mean, you get everything. Like it's just part of it. And that doesn't bother me, because it's not something that I make mean anything. But if someone was to say something, about me, that would hit a trigger, hit one of my insecurities, then that would bother me. It's not what they say or what they think, it's what I make it mean, right? It's my thoughts about their thoughts that are
Mhm.
creating my upset, my pain, my hurt, my sadness, my anger, my self-doubt, all of that stuff. And so if we can clean up our thoughts about ourselves and work on making sure that we are willing and able and fully there for catching instead of kicking ourselves if we fall, then we actually have nothing to fear, because it's not other people that we fear. It's us, right? It's our, oh, what am I going to make this mean about me?
Mhm.
Right? Not only what am I going to make this outcome mean about me if I don't get it, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough, I don't have what it takes. But if somebody else dares to comment or question it, then we're like, oh my gosh, this person thinks this. This must mean I'm an idiot, I'm a failure, they think I'm
Mhm.
stupid, right? Like all of this stuff.
Well, and one comment suddenly writes an entire novel in your head
Yeah,
of words that you're making up yourself. They didn't even
right.
say those words. It's just all the
Right.
things.
We already have the story there,
That's
right?
right.
They're just opening the book,
Right.
right? The story is
Totally.
already there, right? So that's why we're like, we got to burn these books. So
Mhm.
there's nothing for them to open up, right? Like we have to be cleaning up our stories about ourselves, burning the old ones and writing new ones. So then there's nothing for them to shine a light on other than our own story that is the one we want to be having about ourselves.
Totally. Well, I was having a conversation with a really dear friend a while back, and we were talking just about this, and we are very honest with each other and are really good friends. And when something has ever come up where I'm like, "Ooh, like did she need to say it like that? Or am I misunderstanding something? Did I not follow through on something that I was like going to do?" And are close enough in our friendship that there's times where she can text me and be like, "This is what I'm telling myself right now. And I'm
Ah,
telling myself that this is what you were meaning by this. I know you weren't, but I just need to put this out there so that it can just feel good." And I have done the same to her in a totally just casual, not at all confrontational, just for some reason, these are the stories that are being told in my head right now. Just just putting it out there.
yeah,
If you are meaning this, then let's dive into it. And if not, I just needed you to know that so that I don't have to have any little splinters of things that are
yeah,
potentially,
that are ruminating, right?
yes, that are
Yeah,
ruminating and like digging into other areas of my day or whatever, and just like getting it out there and just not letting a thing be a thing. Like it doesn't
yeah,
have to be, oh, I'm offended and now I'm going to spend the rest of the day being mad at the person when I have zero ideas whether or not this is even what is happening right now.
yeah. Right. And it's not interesting that like we're so quick to believe the
Mhm.
thoughts around someone intentionally trying to hurt us or offend us or blow us off or reject us, right? We're so quick to believe that interpretation and so quick to dismiss any possible alternative, right? Like
Mhm.
but it is that negative bias in our brain. So research also shows we have a natural negative bias in our brain originally for our survival, but now, it's not often very helpful because it's turning things into a threat that aren't, right? It's
Right.
making up threats to be like, okay, this is ambiguous. That person made this comment, it's ambiguous. Let's interpret it as something terribly offensive, right?
Mhm. Totally. Well, and it comes back to, I talk about this with my kids all the time, where there has to be, it's hard if you have felt, as humans, if you have felt hurt by somebody or somebody in the past has either once or continuously done or said things that kind of feed into that narrative, and you just maybe are already anticipating that that is what's going to happen when you speak to this person or have an interaction with this person. But
Yes.
my kids and I talk about, I just like, I want to assume that they want the best for me.
Yes.
I need to make a generous assumption
Yes.
about people that I am interacting with.
Yes.
And I say to them too, about people that you're interacting with, like you're playing on the playground, or you're not right now, obviously, but you're doing all the things and you're having interactions with people. I truly don't believe that most people wake up in the morning in a headspace of, I am out to get every human that crosses my path. Maybe there are some that do, and they can live their lives how they need to live them. But I don't believe that I have people in my life who wake up in the morning and think that about me or anybody else that I know. And so it's like, yeah, it's just like mind games sometimes that we play with ourselves.
And even if they are, right, even if they are out to get you, understand that still isn't personal.
Right.
Right? Like when we think about the people that we criticize or antagonize, it's because we're struggling with our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is sort of like the outlet for our own pain, our own anger, our own hurt, our own frustration. And we take it out on other people, but it has nothing to do with them. Right? And so even if someone is intentionally trying to be cruel or hateful or harmful, it still has nothing to do with you.
Okay, so let's use this as an example, because I love this. I feel like, again, channeling out the women here, not that this is obviously a guy thing too, but just thinking about, I can only think as a woman's brain here, but what would you say? So for listeners that are hearing this conversation and they're like, yes, okay, something has happened to me today or this week that was just like the examples you talked about. I got this irritating email. Somebody said something that I didn't like. My kid did something I didn't like. Whatever the case may be, whatever your thing is that happened, whatever triggered you, what would be your practical solution that someone can take today and say, okay, here is one thing that I can actually be mindful of in order to more quickly move through these feelings, rather than letting it ruin my next hour, 24 hours, week, month, if you would really get hung up on something.
Yeah. Well, just even understanding that people are just existing in a way that they think makes sense for them. Right? And I've done a whole video on this called the rule book. And we'll go off on a little aside on this, but I think it's an important thing for us to understand, is that every human being is going through life playing by their own set of rules. What they think is right or wrong, acceptable or unacceptable, reasonable or unreasonable, right? Just sort of, or even just the default without even thinking about it, right? Things that they learned, how to act, how to behave, how to treat people. They have their own rule book. And, we have our own rule book where we think what's sort of common sense, common knowledge, common decency, what's okay, what's not okay. And when we run into problems is when we think that other people are breaking the rules, right? They're not breaking the rules. They're breaking our rules, but they're following their rules, right? So understanding that people have different rules and they're just living according to theirs, what they think is reasonable, right? A reasonable way to talk to someone, to address something, to deal with an emotion, right? Like that's what they think. And so if we can understand that it's not personal, they're just going in accordance with what they believe to be okay. Now, that doesn't mean we just have to sit back and endure it. We can say, I don't like this. I don't want this. I request a change, right? And then they can decide whether or not that's something they are willing and open to doing. And depending on the relationship, that they may or may not be willing to change that. But I think even just for managing our own minds, when it comes to different relationships with colleagues, with bosses, with acquaintances, instead of like taking things personally and even, getting so offended, just realizing this person is just dealing with things in their own way, or they're going through something and they're handling it in whatever way is accordance with their rule book. I don't need to get caught in that crossfire, right? I don't need to get pulled into that. I'm not saying that it's easy. Let me tell you, Kimberly, it is not easy to be able to take that
step
back.
It is not easy. I will be the first to admit that.
And just even this mantra, I remember learning this mantra and it never clicked in the way that it has in the past few years that I've been doing this work at this deeper level. But I remember this person saying, like, this mantra of reminding when you're around kind of volatility or criticism or judgment, to just be like, this is not about me. 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 This has nothing to do with me. If someone doesn't like something that I'm doing, it's still, they don't like it, right? Just like when somebody else is doing something that we don't like, it's not about them, it's we don't like it. And that's allowed, right? We're allowed to not like things. We're allowed to express that we don't like something. We're allowed to request a change, but also understanding it's like, this is what I want, right? It's not that you're necessarily doing something terribly wrong, because according to you, it's not wrong. According to me, it is. And I'm either going to manage my mind around it and just kind of let you do you, or I'm going to request a change. Does that make sense? I know this is sort of like a deeper teaching, and I'm not saying that this is easy. This is a practice.
Well, and that's right. Back to the practice, right? Like, I think it's all of these things. And I think it's easy for us as humans to, like we were talking about before, to just want it all to be fixed yesterday.
Yeah.
And little things are going to keep coming up. And I have been reminded so many times in the last little while, even years, where when you actively are trying to work on growth in a certain area, or you're trying to either change, like I would say to myself, oh man, I really just want to be more patient today. Like, I want to be more patient today. Yesterday wasn't a great day. I was raising my voice with the kids. I was letting little things kind of irritate me. I want to be more patient today. And the day will unfold, and every possible impatient thing coming my way, of things that are like challenging my patience, will happen. And I realize that is the only way. That is the only way to actually be more patient, is to have things that are challenging my patience come my way, to be able to actually practice being patient. Because if everything is running perfectly smooth, sure, I could get to the end of the day and be like, whoa, I was so patient today. But nothing actually challenged me to have to even try to be patient, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And just really using, life as our teacher, right? Like, what's coming up for me right now? What's going on in my life, and what's coming up for me around that? And what do I want to do with that? What do I want to learn from that? And even more so, Kimberly, like taking that to a deeper level. I think so much of us try to manage our emotions by focusing on the emotion, right? I want to be more patient. I want to be more calm. I want to be more, kind, or whatever that is, right? I want to be less reactive. So that's a good thing, but that's only going to go so far, right? What we need to be doing, instead of just working on focusing on our emotions, we need to be focusing on our thoughts, right? Because the thing that causes impatience is our thoughts about what's happening, right? And I think about this with my son. I have a 5-year-old son who has this beautiful but challenging combination of very smart, emotional, strong-willed, and lacks some impulse control. Right? So I love being with him one-on-one. He is smart, he's creative, he's interesting, he's strong. He's just like this incredible human being. But in dynamics with other people, right? When something isn't unfair, or when someone isn't doing something that he wants, his emotions come out, and he can act like a little jerk, right? And it drives me crazy. And I'm like, what are you doing? And right. And I have to, but then and I can get all upset and be like, what's wrong with my child? This is not okay. Why would he hit my daughter? Why would he grab that? Like, why isn't he listening? And I can get all worked up about it and get really angry. Right? And then that's my mind going off, and I can try to tell myself to just stay calm. But what I need in order to stay calm is to remind myself, he's not sucking on purpose, right? Like, he is a 5-year-old boy who is struggling to regulate emotion, struggling with impulse control. It's not his job, right? To try and he doesn't know how to be fully in emotional control. It's not his job to do that. It's my job to be patient, to be understanding, to help him regulate by regulating myself. I am the grown-up, and I can do this, right? Like, I am the grown-up, and I need to just realize that he's not sucking on purpose. He's being a 5-year-old boy who's trying to sort out how to interact with the world, right? And so that's going to allow me to be patient, not just sitting there and being like, don't get mad, don't get upset, don't let this get to you, stay calm, stay calm.
How many
Right?
times have we done that where we're literally like yelling angrily the words "stay calm"? Where I've done that all the time. Where like my kids will do something and they're either having a fight with each other about something and not staying calm, and I decide to insert myself in there and be like, "Why are you guys?"
Yeah, right. No one yell! Stop yelling!
So true. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I feel like we could honestly have a 8 to 10 hour episode because
I,
this
I,
is just like so much to unpack. And
yeah.
I want to get into our speed questions for the end of the
Yes.
interview to hear little
Absolutely.
beautiful snippets about your life. But thank you for just sharing this so authentically. I absolutely love the way you communicate this information. And I have more things percolating now of things that I need to go back to my little workbook and do
Well,
some.
and come into the show site, ask questions, right? And like, this is why it's this interactive. So you're not just sitting there trying to figure it out on your own. Or, even like therapy, if you're just doing isolated therapy sessions, you can like have a session, then, a few weeks later, have another one. But in between, you're like, what do I do with all this stuff in between? Which
Yes.
is why, having something like the Shift Society, we can just like, when something comes up, hey, I need a little extra help. I need a little extra support. Can have someone like help me get some clarity around this and understand this, and what should I do here, right? And just having that ongoing, which I think is a lot more humane.
Yes.
Another reason, right? It's a lot more humane to not have to just compartmentalize and wait.
Yes. Well, and it just allows us to jump out of our own minds, like you said
Yeah.
before, and actually have practical. I'm always about practical solutions. Like I am always a planner, wanting things to like know how they're going to go. So feeling like the work you're doing is not just up in your head, but that you can actually
Yeah.
physically write something on a paper or type something out or whatever the case may be, feels like it uses a different part of my brain to think things through rather than continuing on with some of the stories that are just most likely not true that I'm telling
Yeah.
myself. Putting
Just
it
on
down.
repeat, right? A
Yeah.
belief is just a thought we've thought so long that we've unconsciously believed it to be true.
Mm.
Right? That's it. Like these beliefs we have about ourselves, whether or not we're good enough or lovable enough or worthy enough or interesting enough or smart enough, we believe it because we just thought it for so long that we're like, well, I guess it must be true because it's been in there for a while and haven't really had anything to suggest otherwise, or at least anything that my brain is willing to, connect with. Right? Because then we get into this thing where we just have this negative filter. We have this bias where we reject, right? Anything that could contradict our feelings of unlovability or not being worthy enough or good enough, anything that contradicts that says something different, we're like, no, that's not true.
Totally. Oh my goodness. Well, if this wasn't enough information for us to all unpack today, we are going to be digging deep this week. I love it. So I want to hear some fun
Yes.
little tidbits about your world. So for yourself, what is one thing in the morning that you do to set the tone for your day?
Shower.
Good girl.
Honestly, I don't feel like a human until I've had a shower. I don't wash my hair every day, right? But I've never understand people that can like go through the day and not shower at all. It's not a hygiene thing. It's not, I don't care. It's like, I need that, right? I love showering. So I
It's
don't
like
feel
a
human until,
fresh start.
fresh start.
Start.
It's so simple, but I need a shower in
I
the
love
morning to
that.
feel human.
Are you a coffee drinker, and what is your coffee order?
Yeah, I am a coffee drinker and I am a boring coffee drinker. I like just a thick, I like a strong medium roast. I don't like anything too sooty.
Mhm.
So a strong medium roast with a decent amount of cream and a moderate amount of sugar.
Just doing it. I love
Like
it.
rich and creamy
Yes.
and sweet and delicious. And yes, I love coffee.
And you just like look forward to it as you're having a shower.
Oh,
Yeah.
sometimes the night before I lay in bed thinking I can't wait to get up and have coffee.
That's honestly, I've had a last few weeks of trying to do some things with some digestive things and eliminated coffee out of my diet for a bit. And it's been horrible. it's been wonderful for my body.
Yes.
The routine of making coffee, and I do that too. I think about it the night before, and I haven't had anything fun to think about the night before because I like don't make my coffee in the morning, and it's so sad.
Right. It's interesting how we do. Our brains get attached to these things. Absolutely. Our brains love routine and ritual. They do. They feel like there's like this grounding, which is why, even in the midst of this pandemic, I just did a video about this, why a lot of us have been feeling more unhinged, because a lot of the things that we've been grounding ourselves in are no longer there. And we don't really know where to plant our feet. And we're kind of like scrambling around being like, where do I plant my feet? Right. And without certainty, it's hard to do that.
Well, those things just feel easy. Like I don't have to think about taking a shower. I don't have to think about making coffee. Like it could happen with my eyes closed. Like it just happens.
Yeah. So finding grounding rituals, especially right now. So maybe now is not unless you have to for health reasons to go on some big overhaul diet. You're like, no, I need this. I need this moment right now with my coffee in the morning.
Well, you know what? I got to the point in these weeks where my husband was still drinking coffee. So I would still make the coffee.
Okay.
And I would just hold the cup and smell it. I would pour myself, and it was so wasteful. I would pour myself a cup of coffee and I would just hold it and I would just smell it and like, okay, this feels better. I do want to drink this, but it feels better that this is in my hands and that I've made that. Anyway.
I love it. I love it.
What is something that you have in your purse for your day-to-day or in your luggage when we are able to travel that you just cannot live without?
My blow dryer. Not in my purse, but in my luggage. No, really, my hair, air drying my hair, it's not
You're
appropriate.
You're gonna get some trolls on YouTube if you forget your blow dryer.
Oh my gosh. It's not appropriate. My hair washed without a blow dry is just like not appropriate for human consumption. I was not blessed with amazing hair. I've learned how to work with it and how to embrace it and build a relationship with it. But when it comes to my purse, I would say like, that's a really interesting thing. What do I need to have on me? I'd say a little bit of tinted lip gloss.
Yeah, that's
kind of
nice.
always, favorite time just not bringing a purse and just shoving a couple things in my pockets, like my wallet, my keys, my mask nowadays, and my lip gloss.
Well, I think a lot of people have stopped embracing the purse. Like I know for myself too, especially now that it's getting colder. In the summer, I found this more challenging because some of the things I would be wearing like wouldn't have pockets or wouldn't have things to like put your keys and things places. But now when it's colder out here and you're wearing a jacket always when you go out, I've almost eliminated the purse, and then you're not like touching things and having to put it down. You can just have everything close to home.
Shove a couple things in your pockets. There you go. And especially now because we can pay on our phones. Like I don't even hardly bring my wallet most places anymore.
Like, so easy. The opposite of health. What is your favorite junk food?
Oh, Kimberly, all of it. It's like salty then sweet.
This is a dangerous question during a world pandemic when we're all in our houses eating.
Ketchup chips. I'm true Canadian.
Yes.
Ketchup chips. Old Dutch. It's got to be Old Dutch ketchup chips.
Have to be Old Dutch.
And I've lately been on a crunchy chocolate bar. You know, the one with like the chocolate and the sponge toffee on the middle.
I so know.
Cadbury. Isn't that, I guess I am pretty particular. Old Dutch ketchup chips and pretty much anything Cadbury chocolate.
Don't go throwing some Lay's ketchup chips at her.
I know. Or Hershey's. No Hershey's. Cadbury. It has to be Cadbury.
Yeah. There's like a definitive, like, it's like you're either on one team or the other. Like there's like a line in the sand of what your chocolate and chip preferences are. I love it. What is the first or most memorable concert you've ever attended?
So first actual concert, so non-official, I don't know if it counts. It was a concert. It was Newsboys and DC Talk, but it was at a church.
Oh my word. I did an air band to a DC Talk song in high school.
Love it. I love it. Right?
I sure did. Time is, like, I'm making my clock as if people can see it. Time is ticking away, you know, tick, tick, tick.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So but that was at a church, but it was, it's pretty legit. There's even a bit of a mosh pit in there. But my first actual real like stadium concert was Green Day. In my punk phase.
You got
And
it.
we sat out, my girlfriend that I went with, she was a diehard Green Day fan, and we had to sit outside the back at the end by the tour bus,
Just in case.
waiting for them to, yeah, and they did. The drummer came out. The drummer came out and she freaked out, and then he gave her his chicken bone that he had been eating.
Oh, God.
She kept the chicken bone. It's like, Jen, that's disgusting.
We just had a celebrity encounters episode a few weeks back on the podcast of random celebrity encounters, and having a chicken bone thrown at you would have been a very, very interesting story.
Speaking of random celebrity encounters, I just want to say this one thing. This was like several years ago. It was a good 10 years ago when the Junos came to Vancouver. My friend Myra and I loved this girl. We kind of went and stalked the Junos a little bit. Like, let's just go. Let's just go down to the red carpet and just be little lurkers in there. And I have to tell you, Bryan Adams, very handsome in real life. I mean, he's aged since then. Mm-hmm. But like, I remember seeing him on the red carpet with the lights on. I'm like, he's a small man. Like, he's a very attractive man. Wasn't expecting that. Bryan Adams.
You know what? My girlfriend and I saw him last fall. He came to Saskatoon and got tickets to go see Bryan Adams. And I was thinking the same thing, because is he in his
He's gotta be in his 60s.
Yeah, I was going to say late 50s, early 60s. Like, he's like almost my parents' age.
Yeah.
Like, Bryan Adams could be my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I agreed. He looked really good. Still rocking it. Feeling it.
He's just got something about him. It's very surprising.
Yes. I love that. Okay. So what is something that you absolutely love to do in your free time, which I'm sure you do not have much of?
I love to run, which is a bit obnoxious because I'm not really a runner. I'm not one of those.
Like, I hate you, Julia. How dare you?
Yeah, I'm not an elite athlete. And let me tell you, when I run, it's nothing fancy, but I love, like, especially with small children, I love like fresh air and putting a podcast in or an audiobook and just like having almost that meditative time.
Yes.
Sometimes I listen to music if my brain is tapped out. I'm like, I just don't want to learn anything right now. I just need to listen to either some good old like 80s pop or, a little bit of like hip hop, a little bit of like hardcore hip hop, depending on your mood, right? It's either like Jay-Z or Hall & Oates, one of the two.
just one or the other.
They're kind of similar. But having that time. And I don't run fast. I don't, this isn't anything other than this sort of way to kind of move emotions through, move energy through, center and ground, oftentimes learn and listen. I get inspired a lot by the things I'm listening to. And I love all parts of it.
I totally get that. I started 2 or 3 years ago now, walking 4 or 5 kilometers a day. And my walk is pretty fast. Like, most people that walk are like huffing.
This is a workout. This is a workout.
Like, I'm walking fast. I'm tall, so I'm like taking pretty good like strides and going, but exactly what you just described. When I could get it into my head that going and doing this had pretty much nothing to do with actually the exercise of it all. It was all for my brain is what I told myself. And suddenly, after adulting for however many years and not getting into a proper regime of some type of movement, that clicked for me.
Yes.
So thinking it completely opposite, and exactly that. Podcast. Sometimes I'll talk to a friend, sometimes nothing, quiet, just nothing. I just need no stimulation at all. And I just need to hear what's going on outside or whatever. Oh, I hear you. Okay. Absolutely. What is your favorite travel destination or place that you're most looking forward to going once we can leave our beautiful country of Canada again?
I have 2 things that I would really like to do. One of them, I'd love to just go back to Hawaii. My kids are getting to the age where they can entertain themselves more, right? Like my youngest is now almost 3. So we're past the like needing to be with them 24/7. And my eldest is 7 and she looks out for my youngest. So could actually go and sit on the beach and they could play and I could sit and relax for a few minutes. Or I could go swim in the water and eldest is at the age where she'll come and play in the water with me. And I'm like,
Totally.
oh, let's go bob in the ocean. It's like my dream. I could bob in the ocean in Maui and just like I could do it all day. I find it incredibly therapeutic. So that, and other thing on my list is to go run a half marathon through the Irish countryside.
Oh, that's cool.
Wouldn't that be amazing? And to just like go and like run through the quarries and the crags and the hills and the moors and whatever it's called.
Like a movie
Right?
set. Like a movie set.
And it's that beautiful in the Irish countryside. And then afterwards to be just like that amazing amount of like tired and sore and then go sit in an Irish pub, listening to fiddle music, drinking some good Irish beer, laughing and just being with other human beings and appreciating ourselves and our bodies and being together. To me, that feels like a dream.
My heart is like beating out of my chest right now as I like think about traveling. I'm like, oh,
yes.
this
Where are you aching to go?
Oh, well, we often go to Mexico for a month in the winter and try to escape winter, and have had flexibility in our careers and lives that have been able to make that happen and just get away. But
Yes.
I would say that I would love to go back to Australia. I was just there 2 years ago and it was incredible. But Europe I've touched a lot of places in this world, but no Europe. And so that is like where I'm itching to see places that are just dreams of mine to go. So yeah, I think that would be where I would jet to first.
I can't wait. It's going to feel so much better. And do you know, it's going to feel so much sweeter being able to do this stuff because we haven't had the option.
Totally. Oh, I agree. It is just going to be magic. I feel like even in the little things that have happened in the last like 8 months or so, when our church is quite big and it had a drive-in movie night during the summer, which was like all socially distanced, and they just showed like a kids movie. And so you could go and we like pulled up and like sat, and like, it was so fun. But pulling up into the parking lot that I had not physically been to the building for however many months it was from then, I started crying. It's like so much emotion just like evoked over me in something that is just so important to us that hasn't been able to be a part of our day-to-day life. And I wasn't feeling sad about it until we got there. And then we got there and I was like, oh my word, I am overcome with how much I miss quote unquote normal things that I so took for granted.
Yeah. Right. Like there's this thing of my everyday life that's I just realized it's been gone for a long time.
It's like mourning
yes.
lots of things.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Okay. Last question. What would be included in a perfect day for you if you had the freedom to do whatever you wanted, no rules, no schedule?
And I do this actually. I make a ritual of doing this every year on my birthday. And now that I work for myself, I try to take my birthday off. So a sleep in. I love staying up late. To me, just like the quiet of the night, I love it. So I do stay up way too late most nights. But
it bites you the next day when you have a schedule. But if you have no schedule the next day,
I usually don't book anything early because I work late. Like my brain, it just works better at night. So I just sort of decided that like I'll take that, like, so I don't book things in the morning, but I work at night, and then I'll book things. And usually my first appointment, even with clients, isn't until 11 o'clock. So I can at least sleep in until 9. But on a good day, getting a sleep until like 11 o'clock in the morning, oh, it's bliss.
Just like the old teen years. Right? Sleep in whenever you wanted.
Yeah, I love it. I love that schedule. And, bless my husband for being, willing to get up, and he gets up every morning with the kids. So a sleep in, a shower, a coffee, just like hanging out, snuggling with my babies for a little bit, just being with them, playing with them, and then getting my runners on, driving myself downtown to the Stanley Park seawall, which those who are not familiar, it's like beautiful. A beautiful sort of 10 kilometer a circle around, like almost like an island with forest in the middle, but a beautiful seawall run. So doing a seawall run, and then getting another coffee, maybe a croissant, getting in my car, coming back home, sort of just having some relaxed time, just sort of putzing around, and then having a beautiful meal, right? A beautiful, lovely meal with friends or with family, with my family, my husband, or with, going out somewhere, having some food together. And I know that I'm getting too old for it, but an ideal day to me would also involve dancing,
Oh, I
music and
love
dancing.
that.
Having just going out, I'm like, do you think I could pull it off? Do you think I could pull off going to a club? I know that I'm like old and I have kids, and
If you think you can, then you can.
I'm
That
just
is
like,
what I say. Yes.
right? Put a little
But
extra wrinkle cream on the night before and like
we
get
need
out
to
to the
channel
club.
channel our inner Grace and Frankie,
Right.
like
Yes.
just doing it. I love that. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. This has been such a lovely conversation. And I am just so grateful that you shared your expertise and your wisdom and tidbits about your real life, because you're real like everybody else.
We are
Um,
all real. Yeah.
and this has just been so wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, Kim, it's been an absolute honor. I have loved just being, watching you and being a part of what you're doing. And just hearing about your experience in the Shift Society, that fills my soul, because, right, like that's the goal, right, is to have people have these shifts and this growth and this healing and this transformation in community as well. So I'm so happy for you.
Yay, we got it. This is perfect. Just gonna press stop on this.